just a couple of days ago, on March the 8th, Apple announced the Mac Studio, a brand new computer with a new processor, the M1 Ultra, and the Studio Display, a 5K display. And they did announce some new colors for the iPhone SE, and of course some iPad updates, but the big news was, of course, the Mac Studio and the Studio Display. But behind the scenes, Apple also made another update, and while this seems on the surface a rather small and boring update, it's rather significant. You know, whenever you buy a new product or you update the software, Apple will provide you with, hey, we've got some changes to the legal terms and you should read it, and most people never do. I'm one of the few that actually speed reads through those because I'm looking for anything that has me pretty well looking at dumping an ecosystem. So here's what I noticed. If you're purchasing a Mac, such as the Mac Studio or the Studio Display from an Apple online site in the United States, what you'll see is when they offer you Apple Care now, you'll see two options. One is for the standard fixed rate Apple Care, which is for 2 years. And then you'll see an annualized option, and that annualized option is at $59.99 a year with no end in sight. Now, essentially how this works is after 3 years, you can stay with Apple Care and it'll keep renewing and renewing and renewing until Apple gets to a point where they look at it's too old or they don't have enough parts to replace it. And then at that point, they might notify you within 2 months that Apple Care is no longer available to you. But otherwise, you can continue Apple Care past 2 years, or sorry, past 3 years. So you've got a standard 1-year warranty, 2 years of Apple Care that extends that, giving you a total of 3 years. But with the annualized plan, you can keep going and going and going. Now, this is significant. It's significant for me, and it's significant for a lot of you. Because when we go to purchase Macs, a lot of times we look at some of the systems we want. Boy, like, I'd like that Mac, but you know, after 3 years, if that fails, I'm out of luck. My budget right now is maybe $2 to $3 grand for every Mac for every 3 years. And if I want to bump that up and get, for example, the M1 Ultra processor in the Mac Studio, that puts it up to about 5,000 Canadian, and I can't go with that option unless I can look at extending this computer out to 5 years. And with an annualized plan, it gives me that capability. So great news for people living in the US only, you say? Well, I'm here to tell you, not exactly. Now, I did go to the Canadian site right afterwards and I checked, and right now they're only offering the fixed plan. However, I did read the end user license agreement, and you can find it on Apple's site here. Here's the link to it, you can see. And what I did is I went to all the documents under Apple Care, and if you'll notice the dates right here, I picked the one for March the 8th, the day that Apple announced the Studio Mac and the Studio Display. And if you look at the terms, I'm going to open it up. I'm not going to read off everything to you because these are rather, well, boring, more boring than my videos. And if you look right at the top, look at what it says. It says Apple Care Plus for Apple Display and Apple Care Plus for the Mac. Now, what the plus means is that if you accidentally damage your computer, your Mac, because, well, you poured coffee on it or something like that, they'll still cover you. In the United States, it's $99 and they'll cover it. And in Canada, it's $129 and they'll cover it according to this document. And that's good news because some of us are klutzes at times, and it's good to know. So you get up to 2 incidents a year, each year. And they don't carry over from year to year, but if you keep with the annualized plan, they keep offering you 2 options, which is nice. But take a look down here. A little bit further down, we can see under Section 2, Plan, Term, and Renewal. And we can clearly see, again, let's go right to the top here. We can see that this is for the Canadian site. This is all for Canadians. It's the English version. It's right in the file name. It's got 220308, so that's March the 8th, 2022. It's Apple Care Plus. It's the Canadian version, and it's English. So this is for Canada, and we can see under Section 2 right here, annualized plans and fixed plans. So the interesting thing here is, why on earth are we seeing the terms and conditions supporting an annualized plan that's been released on their site as of March the 8th? But as far as we can see from the website, when you're going to purchasing, they don't give us those 2 options. Now, it's interesting to see that it is in the terms and conditions, so you know it's gone through so much legal review, risk review. For it to get to this point where it's on a publicly available site, I'm pretty much suspecting that that's the way it is. The fact that it's not available on the website for purchasing right now leads me to believe that there's either been a problem with the files being refreshed on the website, or that we haven't got to that in-act date yet, which is strange because we've got the terms and conditions. What I was able to discover a little bit more too is the same contract that we have for Canada is more or less the same contract for for the United Kingdom, for Australia, and several other countries as well, Japan as well. And what's really interesting is the terms have changed a little bit because the support numbers and some other contact information, but as far as the terms under Section 2, fixed and annualized contract. So digging through the terms and conditions can actually pay off sometimes. So here's my thoughts. I was looking at getting the Mac Studio and the Studio Display, and then I started to think a little bit more. You know, I've already got a keyboard, I've already got a trackpad, I've got plenty of spare monitors in the house. I'm doing an awful lot of videos where I shoot in 4K. I'm starting to shoot a lot more in 8K. And what I really need is the processing power more than anything else. So my budget hasn't really changed, but what I've decided to do is completely scrap the Studio Display. It looks like I'm going to go with the Ultra, the M1 Ultra in the Studio Mac, the base unit. And the base unit comes with 64 gigs of RAM. It comes with a 48-core GPU and 20 cores, 20 processing cores. It's just very, very fast. And I think for a lot of the work I'm doing video-wise, it's really going to be huge. So Final Cut Pro is going to be really optimized for that. And when it comes to encoding and decoding 8K and 4K ProRes, it's like having that Afterburner card, only I've got double the cores. So I think this makes a lot more sense. And if they do offer the AppleCare annualized plan, to me, it's an absolutely no-brainer. I can go ahead and purchase this instead of planning on keeping it for maybe just 3 years. I can now look at keeping this computer for 5 years or maybe even 6. And yes, I do have to be out of pocket each additional year for, well, whatever the price they charge Canadian customers. And based on $60 US, it's probably going to be $79.99 Canadian. And for me, to get an extra 3 years, yeah, that's actually worth it. But what do you think? What do you think of this annualized plan, this annualized AppleCare Plus or the Fixed Care plan? Do you actually purchase AppleCare when you buy a computer or not? I have lots of Macs and Apple computers or Apple devices around the house, and I rarely ever get AppleCare. In fact, if I looked at all the money I saved by not buying AppleCare, I could probably buy 2 or 3 of these MacBook Airs. But when I'm looking at a computer that costs $5,000 or more, well, the risks become a little bit more difficult. And if at $70 or $80 a year I can offset that risk, to me that is worthwhile. It's just like insurance on your house. You'd be crazy to not get the insurance. Now, how many of us have had our houses go on fire or be flooded or destroyed in some way whatsoever? It's very rare. In 30 years of owning a house, it hasn't happened to me once. But would I insure all my devices, my fridges, my TVs, and all that stuff? No. No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Same with getting AppleCare Plus on a MacBook Air. For the price and what I'm going to save, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But what I do like about the AppleCare price on the $5,000 Mac Studio, now this is Canadian $5,000, it's $4,000 US, but on the Mac Studio with the Ultra, they're still charging you the same basic AppleCare price as they would with a $1,500 Mac. It's around $200 Canadian, $219 Canadian, or $179 US, or something like that. And to me, that's pretty worthwhile. That's an insurance that I'm willing to pay. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and we'll see you again soon.